Yeah, hi everyone. Welcome to MuleSoft session. So today we are going to discuss about the introduction to MuleSoft. So today's agenda is to discuss the basic terminology, why, how, what in perspective of MuleSoft, what is data communication, what is integration, general scenario, what is API, what is MuleSoft. So why I kept MuleSoft at the end? Uh, so before going to the MuleSoft, we should first know about these things. So, but I want to give some little introduction about the MuleSoft at the start itself. MuleSoft is an API integration platform, or it's we can call it as a API management platform. We generally use MuleSoft as a middleware technology. So, to create or develop the APIs. Why we use APIs? We use APIs as an interface between source and target systems. So this will be the little introduction for MuleSoft. So let us start with the basic terminology. Coming to basic terminology, these are the basic terminologies one should know when it comes to MuleSoft development. So it starts from the communication. So let us see what is communication. So we all knows communication is to exchange the data between two or more persons, right? So if these people are discussing on some point, so they are exchanging information among each other. In the same way, when you take the example of mobile application or web application, so there also so many systems communicate with each other. So communication, one should know. And what is integration? Here, when a group of people is discussing, so the data is like if he wants to communicate something with this person, so he can maintain the eye contact with her and share the information with her directly. If he wants to specifically send information to this person, in the same way, in technical aspects, if if there is some information one needs to pass from a system to another system, okay, there comes integration. Okay, we need to integrate two or more systems to perform specific task when it comes to the mobile application or web application developments. It is simply connecting different systems to work together. What is data? Data, we all know it is nothing but information that is processed or stored by a computer. And when multiple systems interacts with each other, actually data communication happens there. Correct, guys? If you take a real life example, any Swiggy or Zomato, any mobile application, if you open the mobile application, when you start using it, you will be actually connecting with the vendors, right? So you will ordering some products and they will be like delivering those products to you. So everything in between works with the help of data itself. Whatever the product you are ordering for, so you can consider that as a data, and the price of the product you can consider that as a data. So the vendor you are connecting to, you can consider that as a data, and the response you got from the vendor, you can consider that as a data. Okay, everything happens through the data itself. So whatever you are seeing here, the series of ones and zero, it's a data type. Okay, that means there are different types of data exist. So we call this as a binary data. The series of ones and zeros, we call it as a binary data. We have different data types such as strings, numbers. One second, guys. Yeah, we have different types of data when it comes to technical development. What is data processing? The actions which we perform on this data is called data processing. Okay. When someone asks for something, okay, so they are not like simply going to give the raw data. They need to process according to the request. So whatever processing happens on the data, we call it as a data processing. And if you see the definition here, the journey of data from one system to another and converting data from one form to another. Here, transformation means converting data from one form to another. Whenever you are interacting with the machines, right? Machines like websites, or whenever you are interacting with your mobile applications. So at the low level, the communication happens in binary data, series of ones and zeros, which is not human readable, or human cannot understand that type of data. One should like We should be writing a logic to convert the binary data, which is a series of ones and zeros, into a human readable language that could be a string, simple string. Okay. So this process is called data processing or transformations. So that some of the examples like for the data processing. So we can also see the data aggregating, data splitting, converting data from one form to another form, arranging the data, that could be in descending or ascending order, or it could be in alphabetical order. So all this comes under the data processing, guys. What is request here? So whatever we have discussed so far, right, from the start, if you if you see here from top to bottom, so these are all interlinked with each other. So when communication happens, okay, so one should be asking something. So the moment one should ask something to you or to the person which is intended to, so there comes the request, guys. Okay, request is an like starting point to trigger the data processing or data journey. And coming to response, when you sends a request to an intended system or intended person, so that intended person is going to give the response back to you. Okay, so this will complete a cycle. So it starts from the request, it triggers the data journey where data processing happens, and intended person after getting the response from the intended person, so the data processing happens again and gives the response back to the end user. End user is nothing but the person who sends the request at the front end. Okay, they are actually the customers or clients of our services. We are going to work for organizations to provide some kind of services using software, right? So the services which the person which is going who are going to consume, we consider those persons as end users or customers or clients. Okay, so the source request is always comes from the end user itself. And when the data processing gets triggered, so there comes source and target systems again. I will be going to explain in next slides. So what is request, guys? Request is nothing but asking for a information or action to a system. So he could simply ask for information or he could perform some actions on it. So simple touch on the touch screen, you can consider that as a request because it is actually running a mobile application on your mobile phone, right? Your simple touch in technical aspects, we consider that as a request and we process that request and we open up the app for you. Okay. Everything like performing a simple action can also be considered as a request, not only asking for information. What is response, guys? So the slide says response could be failure or success. That's correct. It's always need not to be a success response, guys. Possibly there could be failure responses as well. As a developers, we should consider both the things as a response itself. So it is the final part in the cycle. Request is sent by the user or end user, and the response is going to give by the server to the end user. Okay. What is public and private here? So whatever we have seen, right? The data communication. If you want to make the data private, that means if the communication should be specific to some group of people, then you have to apply some security policies on the particular data communication. Otherwise, that could be public also. So if I open Google, okay, so when I try to access any service, so this policy bazaar is there. So this policy bazaar is actually a open source. It's a public service. Everyone can use it, right? So they can like select the services from it and start making use of it and they can subscribe to it. And some services are there which are just private to the specific users. For example, your banking information. So when you are logging to some banking websites, you will be logging with your credentials, such as username, password. Those are basic credentials one should use to log in to any website or to any system. So that comes under the private. So where authorized personals only allowed, that is restricted. But what is public, which is like exposed to everyone. The information which is exposed to everyone, we consider that information as a public data. As we are working on data communication, so we should be aware of privacy, right? Maintaining privacy is very important when it comes to organizations. As MuleSoft developers, we are going to work for banking, financial institutions, healthcare institutions, trades, businesses. So in each part of the so it is open for the market has so many opportunities. When you consider these fields gives at most important to information security. So that's why applying security policies for the data communication that is happening with the help of APIs among different systems is like very important when it comes to MuleSoft, guys. So let us take a simple example here. So I'm going to take the example of IRCTC. So whatever you're seeing here, right? This is the front end user application. Okay. So the end user is going to enter the details here. So we consider that as a request, and we also consider that as a data. Data could be request or response, guys. Okay. Whatever information you see when the data journey happens, you should be considering that piece of information as a data only. Okay. So here it is expecting the end user to enter the from and to details. Also the date, class, train number. So these are the details which are mandatory to be entered by the end user. Okay. So the moment when the end user click on the show availability. So what is that mean? It means the user is asking some information related to the train details. Okay. So the moment he sends the request, the API picks up the request. Okay. The API is the interface, guys. It acts as a communication medium between front end and the backend data source. So it will be picking up the request from the front end. So which is actually triggered by the end user. He is asking some information, some details. So that request is going to process here according to the backend database. And it is going to fetch the data from the backend database, process it again, sends back to the front end user. Maybe the list of trains that are available with that particular information that is provided by end user. Okay. So this is the cycle of data journey. Data request sent by the front end user, API process it according to the requirement of backend data source and gets the response from backend data source, process it again based on the front end requirements, gives back to the front end user. Understand, guys? So we call this MuleSoft as a middleware technology. So it acts as a communication medium between front end and back end. And there could be multiple source and target systems, not only front end and back end, guys. Okay. So here you can consider the source as a front end system and the target as a back end system. Okay. So it picks up the request from it, process it, gets the response from the backend, process it, and sends back to the front end. So why one should use MuleSoft here? So to avoid the point-to-point dependency, you should not uh, need the backend details to be exposed to the front end. Okay. So when the user is asking some information, the user is not actually directly connecting to the backend database. So there is a mediator in between front end end user and the backend database. What happens even if end user knows the details about backend data source? So we don't want unnecessary details to be exposed to the user. Okay. So there comes data filtration. You should be like exposing the data which is just required by the user. You should not be exposing each and every train details, right? If you are going from Hyderabad to Delhi, you just need the train details which are from Hyderabad to Delhi. You don't need all other train details. Okay. So there comes data filtration, and the data filtration and the dependencies related to the front end and back end are stored in the MuleSoft, not in the front end or back end. Okay. These two systems no need to have information about each other. Okay. Front end don't need to don't need to have the knowledge about the backend. Backend don't need to have the knowledge about the front end. But middleware MuleSoft is because middleware MuleSoft is going to store those details in the form of plugins. You need to just plug in this database to the MuleSoft and the front end to the MuleSoft. If you don't want this particular data source, okay, you just need to unplug it. That's it. If the data is migrated to some other data source, then in that case, you will just plug that data source to the MuleSoft. Okay. So this avoids point-to-point dependencies, guys. Point-to-point integration. We avoid the point-to-point integration using MuleSoft. So what is the need of MuleSoft here? So whatever I said, the user is sending the request and the data source is giving the response back. So all these are like we are going to create all this using the API itself. So that's why one should need MuleSoft. See, if you see these 5 points, so these 5 points replicates our discussion. It says to whom we need to contact or to which system we need to integrate with. So whenever user sends a request, he may not be know about the details of to whom he need to contact. But when he sends the request, that means he is actually connecting to a railway database. And what we need to ask, the user should know about like what are the details he should be asking, what the minimum basic details, like what is the train number, what is the train name, what is the from station to station. So these details comes under what we need to ask, what response we are getting, keeping in mind like the development part. So we should be knowing what response the user is expecting. You should be expecting the details related to the trains based on the from one to station within the journey, date of journey, right? And who is going to consume, where we need to publish the data. Who is going to consume? Some of the websites are there that is public to everyone, and some of the services are there which are just specific to a specific person or authorized person. Authorized person is someone who have like some permissions to access that particular data, right? So if you like onboarded to any organization, so they will be giving you some ID. With that ID, you will be logged into your like organization, you will be entered into some places, but in some places you are not allowed. Okay. So that means to that specific part of the organization, you are unauthorized person. Maybe server location, you are not allowed, but IT people uh, who are maintaining the servers are allowed. What is process of communication that comes under the process of communication is public or private. So this decision should be taken care depending on like to whom you are going to expose the data. Integration. So if you clearly observe here, we are actually integrating front end and back end with the help of MuleSoft, guys. So integration plays important role when it comes to data exchange. So we are exchanging data among between the front end and back end data sources. API and its importance. As I said, we are going to develop a API to exchange the data between two systems, right? So API is nothing but a code, right? It's nothing but a program. So we are going to write set of instructions So those set of instructions explains a developer, or it is going to deploy in server. Those set of instructions are going to deploy in server, and whenever that particular set of instructions gets executed, a specific task is going to perform. So there are two types of APIs are there: REST API and SOAP API. We can also call API as web service. So web service is a communication between two or more systems, happens over internet. And these APIs follows HTTP protocol, guys. HTTP protocol means hypertext transfer protocol. Every API needs to follow the hypertext transfer protocol, like it is globally accepted. The protocol explains these five HTTP methods. Actually, here only I listed four. There are five: get, post, put or patch, delete. So put and patch. These two are for updates. Get is to fetch the information from a server. Post is to create. Put or patch is to update. Delete is to remove records from a server. See if what these HTTP methods explains. These HTTP methods explains five different actions. Okay, that could be performed by the API. And defining these five different HTTP actions using this HTTP method, and some status codes are there. So some of the important status codes are 200, 400, and 500. 200 is successful response. 400 and 500 are error failure responses. So defining these HTTP methods and responses, so that comes under the HTTP protocol. Whatever data communication happens between client and server, okay, the communication should be happens using these HTTP methods. So we know like there are so many software applications are there. Actually, they involves complex data communications, guys. Means they involves multiple data integrations. They have to communicate with different data sources on daily basis to perform some specific task. If you want to like book a movie, so you are going to use Book My Show. So there, so the Book My Show is going to connect to again to different sources, like it can be connected to geo coordinates, or it could be connected to the movie vendors. It could be connected to some payment related APIs. It could be connected to email notifications, SMS notifications. So to perform to just book one movie, okay, all these interactions happens in a mobile application or web application, guys. So generally speaking, in software applications, there comes multiple integrations with data sources. So complex communication happens there. So whatever the end user is sending the request, actually he is sending the request to the API, which is deployed in the server. The APIs are actually deployed in the production servers, to which the client is going to send the request. As we know, the API is a piece of code. It's a program. So the program is nothing but it is going to execute and gives a response that could be success or failure. If consider if a user is like booking one movie, so that is considered as a request, and taking that request, the code is get executed in the server. and the movie details is going to fetch gives back to the end user. MuleSoft and it's important. So MuleSoft provides two major tools, guys: Anypoint Platform and Anypoint Studio. These two platforms helps a developer to design the API, to develop the API, to deploy, secure, manage, and monitor the APIs. We know that API is the interface which we are going to which the developer is going to use for the data communication. So MuleSoft provides a platforms to work on APIs. Okay, complete SDLC can happen using MuleSoft software development lifecycle using the APIs. So one should can design the APIs, develop the APIs, deploy the APIs. He can apply security policies to the APIs to maintain the privacy. After deploying to production servers, he can monitor the performance of the APIs using the MuleSoft itself. So how MuleSoft differs from other integration platforms? Actually, according to Gartner reports, so MuleSoft is a leader in iPaaS, integration platform as a service, and API management platform. Due to its features, so it helps the developers to work with the whole life cycle of the APIs. Whole life cycle of APIs starts from gathering the client requirements, designing the API, developing the APIs, deploying the APIs, securing, monitoring the APIs. So that covers whole life cycle. And features like API-led connectivity approach. So this is approach which is proposed by the MuleSoft. Okay. So this approach actually works with network of APIs or applications. As I said, when you take a software application, so it consists of multiple interactions among different data sources. So these to implement these multiple interactions between different data sources, one should be using multiple APIs. So what we call multiple APIs? Network of APIs. So to organize this network of APIs in three-layer structure, okay, system, process, and experience. These are three layers of network of APIs, which is called as API-led connectivity approach. Okay, it's a three-layer approach. And finally, there are two tools: Anypoint Platform and Anypoint Studio. Anypoint Platform is a web application which helps a developer to design the code, to design the API, to deploy the API, to monitor, to secure the API. Anypoint Studio is to develop the API, guys, to perform like data transformations or to integrate different data sources. One should be going to use Anypoint Studio. So that's it, guys. Thank you. Any doubts up to here?
No, no, Akash. Everything is
So I will
understandable.
try to wrap it up. Actually, these are basic terminologies when it comes to the MuleSoft. MuleSoft is a middleware platform, guys. So it will helps a developer to create the APIs. So creating APIs is nothing but developing APIs. One, we should not be like simply go on right starting the code, right? So we should be developing before developing the code, we should be come up with the design. So one should like design the APIs based on the client requirements, how he required the business process to happen, or how he he is going to send the request, how he is expecting the request response. So this comes under the client requirement. So when a developer start designing the APIs, he is going to give some clarity to the client. So the client is going to like cross check with his client requirements, cross check the client requirements with this design. So to designing API is important. And after design, we should be start developing the API. And after development, it should be deployed in the servers so that the end users can consume it. So to perform all these operations, to cover all the overall life cycle of the API, which is a main important point, which is a main important part of data communication. Okay. So MuleSoft provides one-stop solution, guys. So that's it, guys. Thank you.